give any money to the school.
I don't know what he's doing. Is he videoing? Oh, that's so funny. You switched. Oh, she was homecoming. Oh, yeah. All by herself.
I'd like to welcome all of you to this event tonight. This is always a great gathering. There's a lot of energy in the room, obviously, people catching up with old friends and colleagues, and it's great for everyone to be here this evening to honor this great distinguished group that we have up here. I'd like to start the introductions on my far right. Ann Joint is a member of our Law Alumni Association Board of Directors. She is the co-chair of our dinner committee for this annual dinner here tonight. She is a partner at the Lipsitz and Pontario law firm, and she will be co-presenting tonight's awards. Next to Ann is the Honorable William M. Scretany, who is the recipient of this year's non-alumni award. He is a senior U.S. District Court judge for the Western District of New York. Good evening, Judge Scretany. Next to Judge Scretany is the Honorable Judith J. Gish. She is a graduate of the law school, class of 1980. She is the recipient of this year's Judiciary Award. She is a New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division Justice in the First Department. Judge Gish, thank you for being here. Eileen Fleischman, who you heard from already, is the Vice Dean at the law school and is the Executive Director of our Law Alumni Association. Sitting next to Eileen is Dennis R. McCoy, class of 1977. Dennis happens to be one of my law partners over at the Hiscock and Barclay firm and one of my regular lunch companions. He is the recipient of this year's award for private practice. He is a member of the Dean's Advisory Committee, and he is a past president of the Law Alumni Association. To my left, I have Interim Dean James Gardner. I'll be introducing Dean Gardner in a minute to make some remarks, but thank you for being here tonight, Dean. Next to Dean Gardner, I have Anna Banco, class of 1979, who is the recipient of the Community Service Award. Ann is the president and managing member of the Hurwitz and Fine law firm, and she is a member of the Dean's Advisory Council. Next to Ann is Jonathan S. Bean, class of 1998. He is the recipient of the Business Award this year. He is the Executive Director for Corporate Social Responsibility and Diversity at Time Warner, Inc. in New York City. Thank you, Mr. Bean, for being here this evening. Next to Jonathan Bean is Nicole C. Lee, class of 2002. She is going to be our recipient of the Public Service Award and is a human rights attorney in Washington, D.C. She is the immediate past president for the Trans-Africa Forum, Inc., and Nicole is a member of the Dean's Advisory Committee as well. Thank you, Ms. Lee, for being here. Scott Becker, class of 93, is down at the end. He is vice president of the Law Alumni Association and a partner at Kavanaugh & Cook. Scott is a member of the annual dinner committee, and he will be helping, along with Ann, to co-present tonight's awards. And now, I want to introduce Dean Gardner. On December 20th, 2014, SUNY Distinguished Professor James A. Gardner was named interim dean by Provost Charles Zukowski. Dean Gardner is the Bridget and Thomas Black Professor in the law school, a designation that he will retain while serving as interim dean. A member of the faculty since 2001, Jim is a highly regarded specialist in constitutional and election law. He is a prolific scholar who has published 6 books, as well as numerous book chapters, articles, and review essays. Dean Gardner recently was recognized as one of the 10 most frequently cited scholars in the field of election law by an election law blog. Jim has served as the director of the law school's Jekyll Center for Law, Democracy, and Governance, and formerly served as the school's vice dean for academic affairs. Now it says, Jim, from 200 to 2012. It was a long term.
Went by quickly, though.
Jim was in that position from 2007, I subsequently learned, but it does say from 200. Dean Gardner has served as the elected chair of the law school's Ad Hoc Strategic Planning Commission, which was charged with evaluating the current state of the school and identifying strategies to preserve and enhance its strengths moving forward. Jim's most recent publications include Election Law in the American Political System, What Are Campaigns For? The Role of Persuasion in Electoral Politics, and a new revision of his legal argument, The Structure and Language of Effective Advocacy. Jim has taught at Western New England University, William & Mary, the University of Connecticut, and Florida State University. In 2012, he held the Fulbright Visiting Research Chair in the Theory and Practice of Constitutional and Federalism at McGill University in Montreal. Dean Gardner received his BA from Yale University in 1980 and his JD from the University of Chicago in 1984. From 1984 to 88, he practiced law in the Civil Division of the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It's my pleasure to introduce Interim Dean Gardner, and he'll share a few remarks.
Thank you for that terrific and incredibly thorough introduction. I've been coming to this event for many years now, and it is always a great pleasure to be here. And in fact, in thinking about that, I realize it's actually several different kinds of pleasure that I get from attending. First, there's the obvious pleasure of familiarity. I see here friends, I see here former students, colleagues from the adjunct faculty, alumni officers, leaders in the legal community. It's wonderful to see you all again. A second pleasure I always derive from this event is a kind of pleasure of reassurance. And here's what I mean. As a professor, you often see your students at their most unflattering moments. You see them unsure of themselves, anxious, overworked, bored, distracted, impatient, unprepared for class. And I'm not going to lie to you, when we law professors sit on the stage at commencement and watch the graduates walk by one, the moment does not always, as each of them passes, inspire a feeling of great confidence. There are a lot of crossed fingers under those robes. But here, I have to tell you, I come here and I see some of those same people, sometimes only a year or two later, and guess what? They look like lawyers. They talk like lawyers. They're smooth and confident and effective, and they exude the self-confidence that good lawyers have. I don't mean the phony kind of self-confidence that sometimes a very transparent affectation of people who think quite wrongly that being a lawyer means being a blustering bully. I mean the real self-confidence that shows that it has been honestly earned. And I say to myself at those moments, you know what? We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So I always look forward to and enjoy that feeling of relief, but it also teaches a useful lesson, which is that preparation for a successful career in law is not something that is provided exclusively by law school. Successful career in law is built on a three-way collaboration, a collaboration between an aspiring professional, a law school, and senior professionals in the community, by which I mean experienced lawyers, judges, clerks, secretaries, all people who provide essential mentoring to young lawyers very early in their careers. And that affirms what I happen to believe, which is there is no such thing as a practice-ready lawyer on graduation day. No one is a fully formed professional on the day they graduate from law school, no matter what kind of training the law school offers. Rather, if we have done our job, what there is at graduation is a person who is ready and able to continue learning. To continue learning from experience, to continue learning from senior colleagues like yourselves. It is an indispensable part of the professional training process. It is a partnership in every sense. It truly does take a village to raise a lawyer. That brings me to the third kind of pleasure that I always derive at this event, which is the pleasure of confirmation of our community. A person who matriculates at SUNY Buffalo Law School is not simply a student enrolling in a course of study, some kind of consumer of a credential-granting product, though increasingly, I must say, students tend to arrive under that misimpression. In fact, the moment of matriculation is much more significant than that, and the matriculant becomes a new member of a community that connects law students to the law school, to its faculty, to its alumni, to the practicing bar, to the bench, and to the entire legal community of the region. And this event always reminds me vividly and pleasurably of our connectedness. Tonight, for me, there is for the first time a fourth kind of pleasure. I've benefited from membership in this community for 14 years. My newest pleasure is the pleasure I take in having been offered the opportunity and the privilege to serve this community in a new way as Dean of the Law School. And in that capacity, I look forward to working with you collaboratively in partnership for the collective benefit of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Gardner. Before we get dinner going, I need to recognize our sponsors for this evening's dinner. The Law Alumni Association gratefully acknowledges the generosity of the underwriters that helped make this dinner possible. Proceeds from tonight's dinner will benefit the various activities of the Law Alumni Association, which some of you may know includes scholarships that we make available to some of our students, as well as some internship underwriting the costs for some of our folks who are in the BPO program, as well as a variety of other things. Our gold level sponsors tonight are the Hiscock & Barclay LLP, M&T Bank, the Ricken Group at Morgan Stanley, and Time Warner Incorporated. Silver level sponsors are Jack W. Hunt & Associates, Lipsitz Green, Chimay, Cambria, Lipsitz and Pontario, National Fuel, Rich Products Corporation. Our bronze level sponsors are the Bar Association of Erie County, Connors and Bellardo, Freed Maxick CPAs, Jacob Fleischman and Mughal LLP. We have many donors this year whose names are listed in the dinner program and are displayed as part of the PowerPoint, which is showing on both screens on either end of the venue. And you can see those scroll through during the course of the evening. Our media sponsors, we'd like to thank the Daily Record and Business First Buffalo Law Journal. Other thank yous I'd like to express on behalf of the Law Alumni Association Board, our appreciation to Joe Delvecchio and Ann Joint, who are our dinner co-chairs this evening. I want to thank all the members of the dinner committee who helped to put this together. This is a very big task for them. Scott Becker, Beverly Braun, Joseph Morath, and Seth Pullen. I want to thank Executive Director Eileen Fleischman and her staff out at the Alumni Office, including Assistant Director Lisa Mueller, Assistant Gold Group Director Pat Warrington, Administrative Assistant Amy Hypnorowski, Database Manager Cynthia Rogers, Christine Lively, the Law School's Webmaster, Amy Atkinson, the Law School's Director of Special Events, and Laurel Connolly, the Law School's Event Coordinator, for their help this evening. If I could just ask if members of the Alumni Association Board or the Gold Group Board, now the Gold Group is the graduates of the last decade, so if we have any members of the Alumni Board, officers of the Alumni Board, or officers or members of the Gold Group, could you please just stand up and be recognized? Thank you to all our board members and officers for their support throughout the year. I'd like to welcome our new Law Alumni Association directors. We have Kenneth M. Gossel, class of 1991. Ken, I know you're here somewhere. Chris Grant, class of 2005. Elizabeth Krangle, class of 2007. Elizabeth Savino, class of 92. Jason Ulatowski, class of 2007. and Dr. Sylvia Valentin, class of 1997. In addition, our new Gold Group directors are Lydia H. Beebe, class of 2012, Emily M. Berry, class of 2015, Kristen Murray, class of 2012, Caitlin O'Neill, class of 2015, and Nicholas Romano, class of 2013. Celebrating anniversaries this evening, we want to congratulate our members of the classes of 1955 who are celebrating their 60-year anniversary, and the class of 1965 celebrating their 50-year anniversary. A full list of the members of those classes appears in the program, and they will all receive certificates of appreciation for their long service to the profession. At this point, I'd like you to all enjoy dinner, and thank you for your attention. We'll pick up after a little while. In terms of our awards, this is our 53rd awards dinner. It was established by the Law Alumni Association's Board of Directors in 1963, and the Distinguished Alumni Awards recognize the valuable contributions that law school alumni have made to their profession and to the community. The acceptance remarks are in the program booklets, so you can read those. We went to that a number of years ago in order to try and keep the program moving. So those remarks and their highlights of their careers, I would ask you to take a look at and enjoy reading that. In the meantime, I would like to, well, before I do that, tonight's award recipients have become part of the law school's history. They are part of our oral history. We have an oral history program that was initiated in 2000. The Oral History Project has recorded alumni, faculty members, and others with close ties to the law school. The project has preserved their voices for posterity and digitally indexed their words to provide easy access for historians, researchers, and others. All 6 of our honorees tonight have been interviewed as part of the project, and tonight we will feature a clip from each of their interviews as part of this awards presentation. So at this point, I would like to have Ann Joint and Scott Becker come up to make their presentations. I think we start with Ann, if I'm not mistaken.
Good.
Good evening. It is my honor this evening to present the award for the judiciary to the Honorable Judith J. Gish, Associate Justice for New York State Supreme Court's Appellate Division, First Department. When interviewed for her oral history project, Justice Gish talked about her experience as a female litigator early in her career.
You know, I was, after I left the Third Department, I started working for a small law firm, and I did commercial litigation. Again, not an area where a lot of women went into, and I'll tell you, even now, we need to have more women commercial litigators. But at the time, I was doing commercial litigation, and I had a big case that we were getting ready for trial in the federal court, and I was pregnant with my first child. And it was clear that this case, which originally was expected to be a 3-day trial, was quickly turning into what was going to be a month-long trial, that the discovery, which was going to be completed in 30 days, was taking 6 months. And so consequently, as my pregnancy was moving along, it looked like the case couldn't be tried before I had my first child. And so we made an application to adjourn the trial for the 3 months that I would be on maternity leave, because it was the kind of trial that really there was no fire, nothing was going to happen as time changed, and I was clearly the person who knew the most about the case, and it was just happenstance that I couldn't have tried the case because it expanded into something that we didn't expect. I was denied the adjournment. I was denied the adjournment. And actually, that was the first time that I ever appeared on the front of the Law Journal, because the ruling about denying an attorney an adjournment based on maternity leave was the first ruling of its kind like that. So here's the aftermath of what happened in that. My client needed to get another attorney to come and try the case, who got an adjournment because they were new to the case. They tried to settle the case, which they couldn't do without me because I had the institutional memory on the case. And I spent a lot of my maternity leave getting communications from this firm because they were unwilling to agree to the settlement without me reviewing it. I think things have changed a lot for women litigators. This kind of idea that we should accommodate people having children and childcare, it's changed in the profession a lot. I don't think it's perfect, but I think we have a better sensibility. And I believe that not only does that apply to women, but it applies to men who need time for childcare as well. It could be better, but the product has moved forward, so to speak, in the 35 years that I've been a lawyer, and it's been interesting.
The life of a Supreme Court justice can be pretty humdrum. The caseload is crushing, and the hours are long. And then the mayor of New York City appears before you in his sensational divorce case, and the whole world is watching. That's what happened to Justice Judith Gish in her first department courtroom. It took all of her hard-won toughness to block out the glare of the TV lights and rule, for example, on whether Rudy Giuliani should be allowed to have his mistress over to visit in Gracie Mansion while the children were there. A New York City television station polled its viewers, asking whether or not they agreed with the ruling. I was astonished there would be that kind of fallout, Justice Gish said. A New York Times story about her said it like this: "One day, perhaps, there will be a seal for the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of New York, with what well might be the credo of the New York City judge: we are not impressed." If that day comes, there could be no finer model than Justice Gish. In the case of Giuliani v. Hanover was only one highlight of what has been an active and varied career on the bench, one that started in the rough and tumble of New York City housing court. But the values that undergird her work started long before, in her growing up years in Queens. She came from modest means, hardworking middle-class parents, but a very loving family, says the Justice's law school roommate, Ellen Evans Alexander. I remember at our commencement, we were all lined up downstairs, waiting to go in, and her father came wandering downstairs with his camera asking, "Have you seen my baby?" He was a wonderful guy, and her mother was very strong-willed and smart and opinionated. I remember her saying to me once, "I usually pick a fight with Judy before she leaves for school so we won't miss each other so much." They were in the same first-year section, but it wasn't until their third year of law school that Justice Gish took up with her classmate, Stephen Shirkman. "I didn't think her friends were particularly enamored of me," he remembers. Steve's roommate, Stuart Gelbert, said she hung around a lot. "It was kind of like I had another part-time roommate," he said. Now, as an Associate Justice of the First Department's Appellate Division, she is part of the state's second highest court. She brings to the job the same practical, respectful, get-it-done ethic she has always practiced. And celebrity litigants or not, she puts those homegrown values of a prodigious work ethic and self-reliance on the table every day, and still with a touch of Queens in her voice. For her conscientious and diligent performance in the judiciary, one that has made us proud as her fellow alumni of SUNY Buffalo Law School, we present a Distinguished Alumni Award to the Honorable Judith J. Gish.
Good evening, everyone. Dennis McCoy, senior partner at Hiscock and Barclay LLP, is this year's recipient of the Award for Private Practice. During his oral history interview, Dennis talked about his love for the law school.
My fondness and love of the law school is pretty hard to describe, adequately describe. You know, there really isn't anything I wouldn't do to promote and preserve and continue the mission of the law school. I think it's changed also since I was a student. You know, obviously the campus has changed. I still think it's architecturally not exactly what I would have hoped for at UB, but you know, a lot of things have happened to the building. A lot of things have happened to the student body, to the faculty, and we have a super diverse faculty and student body right now. I'm very proud of that. And I think that, you know, the students bring a life and the faculty supports the life that they bring to the law school, and the caring that they have for each other and their focus on, you know, some of the real essential meanings of being a lawyer and what law means. Because we've got a lot of first generation you know, lawyers in our law school, and they're discovering what all that means, and it's really a wonderful thing. I don't know about other law schools, but I know that I like what I see at our law school right now, and anything I can do to support it, you know, whether it's my time or my treasure, I try to give as freely as I can.
They say that when Dennis was a high school senior looking at colleges, he was on the fence. Notre Dame or Cornell. You can go to any school you want, his mother said. But I'm only paying for Notre Dame. So Notre Dame it was. And Dennis, who we honor tonight for his contributions in private practice, has bled blue and gold ever since. He goes with friends on an annual pilgrimage to South Bend to take in an Irish football game, and on the way they crank up the car stereo with 60s and 70s tunes, mostly Rolling Stones. And it's uncanny because he can sing every line perfectly. That's because, for a time, Dennis was a lead singer with the cover band Nick and the Nice Guys. Depending on the bars you've been in, you've probably heard him. He even dressed the part. Witnesses have said that there may have been a headband involved. His word-perfect memory has served Dennis very well. Tom Cronmiller, one of his partners at Hiscock and Barclay, remembers a time that the two of them were presenting an ethics CLE to about 200 lawyers in New York City. They were running a PowerPoint presentation with some clips from lawyer movies, My Cousin Vinny, A Few Good Men, Liar, Liar, and the audio went out. The video was fine, but there was no sound. So Dennis stood up and recited the whole dialogue for the clips, perfectly word for word with the right inflection. Some of these clips were 3 minutes long, Tom said. It was like he was the actor. It takes a sharp mind and a lot of character to be a great lawyer, and Dennis is known as a student of the law. He keeps up with new statutes and decisions, and he studies hard, and he's a serious advocate for his clients. But at the same time, he leavens the work with laughter, the kind of humor that makes practice not just bearable, but enjoyable. His partner, Bob Heery, remembers first meeting Dennis in the old Saperson and Day office. A bunch of lawyers had left the firm abruptly, and there was bad karma in the air. There were a couple of empty offices that we were going to be moving into, Bob said, ones that had been occupied by some of these lawyers who left. Dennis greeted me and another partner who was moving in, and he took us into these offices, and he brought with him a small cup of water, and he performed an exorcism in each office to get rid of the spirits of the lawyers who left. I'm sure he learned that at Notre Dame. So, another time, Tom Cronmiller recalls, an opposing counsel on a case was being a particular jerk. So Dennis wrote him a scathing letter, but had Tom sign it. We were out of state doing depositions, he says, and the other lawyer gets in my face about this letter. And there's Dennis over there saying, oh, gee, that's terrible. I have no idea why Tom would send that letter. Well, it's easy to be a jerk as a lawyer, but what's hard and what really makes an effective lawyer and counselor is to not take yourself too seriously, to use gracious humor, like Rembrandt uses a paintbrush, and to always have the back of the people who are your colleagues and your friends. And no one does that better than Dennis McCoy, and we're proud to recognize him tonight for his leadership by example as a private practitioner with a Distinguished Alumni Award.
Congratulations. So well deserved. How about it? Let's take a picture.
The award for community service is presented this evening to Anne E. Evenko, President and Managing Member of Hurwitz and Fine PC. In her oral history interview, Anne describes her service to women as her greatest contribution to the community for which she is most proud.
And I think I feel most proud of what I've done for women over the years. If you look at my career, if you look at my personal life and my volunteer life, everything I've been interested in, everything that I've achieved has been for women to achieve economic independence. And that's so important, to have communities that are productive and happy, and opportunities for young girls to pursue education and pursue their dreams. So everything that I've done, whether it's being president of the YWCA of Western New York, or being actively involved in Every Woman Opportunity Center, being a founding member of the Western New York Women's Bar Association, and now as the chair-elect of the Western New York Women's Foundation, I think that shows a significant strain of my fabric, which is helping other women succeed.
Dan Cohane, Anne Evenko's classmate at law school and now her colleague at Hurwitz and Fine, tells this story. When we reached our third year in law school, the firm was looking to hire 2 young lawyers, and Anne and I were both hired. We were both earning the same amount of money at the time, a pretty good salary of $15,000, and of course we had taken the bar exam in the summer. Both of us were promised a raise of $1,000 if we passed the bar. The bar results came out in November, on Veterans Day weekend. They came out on a Friday in Albany, and they wouldn't get delivered in the mail in Buffalo on Saturday. And they weren't going to come Sunday, of course, and then Monday was Veterans Day, and there was no mail. So we were going to have to wait until Tuesday to find out if we had passed the bar. So Anne talked to one of our classmates, Jean Powers, and Jean knew a person at the 4th Department who could give us the information. Anne got that person's phone number and called and found out she had passed the bar. Then she gave me the phone number. We both passed. Bob Fine, the senior partner, was in Israel at the time, so we sent him a telegram. Pass bar, send raise. And the moral of the story there, Anne Evenko gets it done. And she's been doing it from the start, beginning her career in the heyday of the women's movement and clearing her own path through the hidebound traditions of a profession where the old boys club dies hard. Women have used her as an example of how women can walk both sides of the aisle, to have a family and be professionals, and be leaders in the community as well, Cohane says. Anne does that with quiet dignity. She has always been able to advance the interests of her client, her community organizations, and her own interests with an attitude of camaraderie and cooperation. That meant some tough negotiations with the firm over flexible work schedules, half days, weekend work, whatever it took. It meant her husband, Tim, carrying half the load at home, and sometimes more, at a time when that division of labor was a novelty. And it meant juggling the competing demands of work and family, while at the same time adding in the labor-intensive wild card of community service. Everything from the Women's Bar Association of the State of New York, to the Girl Scouts of Western New York, the Western New York Women's Foundation, and the Buffalo Niagara Partnership. Anne is my hero in that respect, says her buddy Linda Nenny. They met through the Women's Bar Association. The idea of you could do it all, Anne epitomized that, doing all that and having children on a partnership track. Nenny remembers that after one of the kids was born, the firm brought files for her to review while she was lying in bed at Children's Hospital. Sometimes things come full circle, Cohane remembers. Anne announcing in carpool one day that she was pregnant. Now that baby, Mark Schultz, is a 2011 graduate of SUNY Buffalo Law School and an attorney for Hurwitz and Fine. And Bob Fine, who got that telegram about the $1,000 raise, Anne has followed in his footsteps, succeeding him as managing partner, only the second one the firm has ever had. For all the ways she has leveraged her skills, her enthusiasm, and her boundless energy for the betterment of our community, we present Distinguished Alumni Award to Anne E. Evenko.
We honor human rights attorney Nicole Lee for her extraordinary commitment to public service. In her interview, Nicole speaks about her first job after graduating from law school.
It was to assist the Haitian justice system and kind of pushing through some cases against the military, the former military and paramilitary, for human rights violations during a coup that had happened a decade before. One of the cases I worked on was a massacre that had happened close to an area in Haiti called Gonaïves, where people, the military and paramilitary came in and literally just murdered scores of people because of the political activism that had been happening in the town. Also at the time, it really, people in the international community had just started talking about how rape and sexual assault was being used as a weapon of war. For so long, the conventional wisdom was, well, rape is something that just happens. It's just one of those byproducts, the quote unquote rape and pillage. But feminists and feminist scholars and legal scholars started really pushing the idea that, well, no, this is actually being used as a political tool. This violence, just like any other torture, is being used as a political tool. And so in Haiti, we started using that framework right around the time that they were using it at the International Tribunal for Rwanda and for former Yugoslavia. So we were all kind of coming to this consensus. And so I worked on a case against both the military and paramilitary, again, for using rape as a weapon of war against political activists.
When the city of Baltimore erupted in anger over the death of an African-American man in police custody, Nicole Lee was there, just as she was there in Ferguson, Missouri, when a police shooting there sparked racial tensions and violence, just as she has always been there when human rights are at risk and someone needs to make the point that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are worth defending, not just for the privileged few, but for everybody. As president of Trans-Africa Forum in Washington, D.C., Nicole advocated on foreign policy issues related to people of African descent worldwide, with an emphasis on U.S. trade and aid policies. We talk a lot about amplifying voices from the ground, not speaking for them, she said. There's no such thing as a voiceless person. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a perspective. Now, as an attorney and public policy professional for her own consulting firm, the Lee Bayard Group, Nicole continues the fight for human rights at home. We spoke to her last week in Baltimore, where she was coordinating the Baltimore Legal Defense Committee, supporting the protesters who have taken their outrage over Freddie Gray's death to the streets. The work involves providing bail support to those who have been arrested, finding lawyers for them, and training legal observers, hundreds of them, to make sure that the pumped-up police presence in that city, along with the National Guard, is in keeping with the rule of law. They are also working with lawyers and legal workers who are dealing with mass arrests, providing anti-bias training for those who may not have worked with clients from the Black community before. She's also developing a kind of rapid deployment legal support system that can be brought in nationwide, anywhere a community experiences this kind of tension. Nicole says Professor and former Dean Mikhail Matua, an international human rights advocate, was a big influence on her, and for his part, Dean Matua remembers her as a very determined student. She always knew what she wanted to do and pursued it with a laser focus, he says. She was unafraid of everything. She dreamed big and wouldn't be victimized by small dreams. I think of her in the tradition of Mother Teresa. She lives and breathes social justice. Nicole has given her time and energy to the law school as well. She has counseled students looking to practice in the human rights area, which is not the easiest place to find a job. And just this January, co-taught a course on the practical aspects of human rights lawyering, bringing a class full of SUNY Buffalo law students to Washington, D.C. to meet with policymakers and advocates of all stripes. As long as human beings are tempted to misuse their power over one another, that is work that will never end. It is for her commitment to public service, particularly human rights for all, that we are proud to present this distinguished alumni award to Nicole Lee.
We are presenting the award for business achievement as a lawyer to Jonathan Bean, Executive Director for Corporate Social Responsibility and Diversity at Time Warner, Inc. When interviewed, Jonathan described the value of his SUNY Buffalo education and its impact on his career.
I felt that the education that I received there was as good as anywhere I've ever been.
Yeah.
And also, once I got into the workforce, I was at PwC, I saw what people were bringing to the table.
Sure.
I was not intimidated.
Yeah.
The education that I got at the University of Buffalo is top notch. I never felt like it was less. I felt like I was on par, and the education was as good, if not better, than anybody else. And I think it's proven to be true because I've been able to use the training that I've got and kind of like the ability to really have the individuality that I have.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a people person. I like to collaborate. I like to connect. I like to connect this to this. I like to find things that need to be fixed and raise my hand to fix it.
Sure.
And I think all of that goes to the training that I got as a lawyer and also and the MBA together really allowed me to go into some areas that other people either didn't feel comfortable going into or simply couldn't because they didn't have the background.
Right, right.
It must be confusing for Jonathan Bean's kids, his classmate and friend Andrew Wilson says, because sometimes kids misbehave and you have to discipline them. But no matter what the situation, even those moments of tough love, a smile never leaves John's face. It's that smile and the charisma behind it that everyone mentions when they talk about John. Everybody has somebody who doesn't like them, says his classmate and friend Frank Early. Not John. There's nobody who doesn't like him. That was evident at SUNY Buffalo Law School, where John earned a dual degree, JD and MBA. He just had a way about him. Everybody wanted to be around him, Wilson says. And if you're around him, you're laughing. If you're ever self-conscious about your jokes and your humor, just hang around with John. He's going to laugh at everything you say. He just has a great outgoing personality. That good nature is wrapped around a guy who is, by all reports, a fierce competitor. That extends back to his undergraduate days at Dartmouth College, where John played wide receiver for the Big Green football team, alongside at least one teammate who went on to the NFL. That team was the last one to win the Ivy League championship for Dartmouth. Winning is important for John. But so is keeping in touch and maintaining those relationships that were forged in the crucible of law school. The day after their commencement, John and 8 of his classmates started an email string. They keep each other up to date on what's going on in their lives, and maybe sometimes do a little business. They also go up to Saratoga every year for a reunion weekend that goes like this: golf, going to the races, more golf, and possibly a beer or two. As Executive Director for Corporate Social Responsibility and Diversity at Time Warner, John has guided the media company's efforts not only to make sure its employees represent a cross-section of America, but that the shows Time Warner offers do the same. If anybody's right for this job, it's him, Early says. He gives everybody a fair shake. That's important in a sprawling company that comprises 3 major divisions: Turner Broadcasting System, Warner Brothers, and HBO, each with its own agendas and its own turf to defend. For more than 5 years, John has made it his business to build relationships and trust among those large divisions and with Time Warner's corporate office. That's a particularly hard job because the players in the diversity area change often. There's a lot of movement. HBO Senior Vice President Nikki Bethel says it's John's special gift to be able to navigate through all these divisions as if he were an insider. There are hard negotiations and often tough conversations. John is effective around those conference tables, Bethel says, because he brings the ability to move people outside of their conflict zone. He can find common ground with the people involved because he has already built relationships with them. And he can help them find common ground with each other as well. And that, she says, is how John solves problems and gets things done at Time Warner. It is for that important work and the way John has used his extraordinary people skills and his commitment to making the media business a force for good in the world that we honor him tonight. It gives me great pleasure to present a Distinguished Alumni Award for his exemplary performance in the world of business to Jonathan S. Bean.
Last but not least, tonight we present an award to the United States District Court Judge William M. Scretany, a non-alumnus who has made a significant impact on our Western New York legal community. In his oral history, he shares with us his advice for lawyers and law students.
My advice to lawyers, I think, is this, and you know, you can take a multiplicity of approaches to giving out advice. But there are 2 things that are important to me in answering that question. One is, don't hesitate to challenge the status quo, because the status quo is not always right. And sometimes inexperience can make you more effective and the results can be more positive when you have the courage to challenge the status quo. The second bit of advice is from a quote from St. Francis de Sales. And he said, "Don't ever wish for anything that you are not. Be and do what you are perfectly." And that's my advice to students of today.
In Judge Scretany's chambers in the federal courthouse, there is a turtle. It used to be his youngest daughter's turtle, but she grew up and got married, and Dad inherited the turtle. Humphrey, the turtle is called, or used to be, until one day the FedEx guy came by, who was also a veterinary student, and he examined the turtle and said, "Judge, this turtle is not a he, it is a she." And so now Humphrey goes by the unlikely name of Humphrey Etta. So So perhaps reptilian gender identification is not the judge's strong suit. But in most every other way, in a quarter century on the federal bench, Judge Scretany has quietly set an extremely high standard of intellectual rigor, humanity, and professionalism. And that standard is how he runs his court. Time and again, jurors who have endured the hardship of a federal court trial find the judge coming to them to thank them for their time and to talk about the legal system with them. They leave feeling that they've had a good experience with the justice system, and that can only further the cause of justice in general. And with defendants, the judge is just as compassionate. His former law clerk, Bernadette Gargano, now runs the law school's pro se civil litigation practicum in conjunction with Judge Scretany's court. She says that when he is imposing a sentence on a defendant, he takes pains to explain why he decided on the sentence and to really express concern for the defendant or hope that this person will turn his life around. Gargano says that she has seen people who have just been sentenced to 3 years in federal prison thank the judge for his kindness. Sometimes he's there for half an hour or more, and while others are checking their watches, he knows what an important moment that it is. The human touch extends to his clerks and others on his staff. Gargano says the Christmas tree they drag out every December is hung with crocheted ornaments with the names of every law clerk he has ever had, and his wife Carol makes them. As Judge Scretany assumes senior status, a big part of his legacy is the building of the Robert H. Jackson U.S. Courthouse downtown. He was influential in helping to push it through Congress, getting the funding in place, even helping to design the building. He and his colleague Judge Arcara made a lot of trips to newly built courthouses across the nation, and one insider confirmed that they always managed to find the best steakhouse and the best seafood in every city, joking it was as much a restaurant tour as a courthouse tour. Judge Scretany went to law school in the turbulent 1960s at Howard University, which we don't hold against him tonight. And some say there's still a little bit of hippie hiding under those black robes. You may have noticed that he's got the long hair thing going, which is safe to say somewhat unusual among federal judges appointed by George H.W. Bush. It's even lapping over his collar on his official oil portrait that was unveiled earlier this year. It proves, I guess, that he's a human being, Poppy to his 2 grandchildren, but to everyone else, a model of humanity and compassion in the administration of justice. For those qualities, and for his unparalleled career on the bench here in the Western District of New York, I'm honored to present this award for outstanding service to the community and the profession by a non-alumnus to the Honorable William M. Scretany.
If I could impose on everyone for one last round of applause for all of our recipients here tonight. I want to thank you all for your time, for your attendance, for your attention during this evening's presentations, and I wish you all a good night. Thank you.